Everybody, welcome into The Spread, NESN.com's football picks podcast. I am NESN.com's Mike Cole, joined as always by my two pals, Ricky Doyle and Andre Kachaturian, also of NESN.com fame. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Fame?
Doing well.
Who cares? Whatever.
Certainly not fortune.
No, certainly not.
Fortune.
Oh,
Picks.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I didn't know what you were hiding from us, or I guess the video team money might be a little, whatever. I got to talk to my agent, all of that.
Picks. We've all been great in picks.
Well, that's the thing. So I guess, let me just explain what we do here. This is the NESN.com picks podcast, as I mentioned, the football picks podcast, where we do against the spread picks. Every week we'll do the 3 best games, do locks and upsets as well. And as always, all of our picks will be found at NESN.com /NFL, I guess probably Thursday at some point.
Odds.
Slash odds / sports betting. All of them. It's all over the place. It's the wonder of the internet. Yeah, so we'll make our picks and we'll go from there. But, you talk about fame and fortune. If we've been putting some money down this season, specifically last week, we'd be doing pretty well.
Especially the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
All of us have been doing very well. Last week, Mike, you led the way with an 8-5-1 record. Ricky, you and I not far behind with 7-6-1 records. Overall standings, I'm still in first with 78 wins. Ricky, you're in second with 73, and Mike with 71 wins. We're all over 70. We're all approaching the century mark. I feel like it took us to like the last couple weeks to get 100 wins.
That's pretty damn good.
Yeah,
going against the spread.
When I was looking at it the other
sometimes
day,
people think we're picking them straight up, which I mean they should know by the name of the show.
The spread.
That we're picking them against the spread,
right.
But
ATS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're over 500, that's
and
legit.
it's well, actually, I don't know. Is it more or less impressive because we make every pick? I think it's almost less impressive because you just have more of a chance to regress to the average. Like if we, again, I'll have to go back and look at our.
Finds a nut every once in a while.
I'll have to go back and look at our. I'll have to look at our actual picks for the show again. I did that a few weeks ago. I'll have to go do that again at some point. But I think we do pretty well. I think
there are some games like Bills Jets where we made the pick on Tuesday.
Good point.
And then Matt Barkley ends up being the starting quarterback on Friday. It changes things.
That's true.
And also there are some games that I just frankly do not even care.
Yeah,
about.
exactly.
Also, that's a good point too. Yeah, so I guess it all evens out.
I don't think I spent much time looking at the 49ers Giants.
That
was just not great. And there's a few of those this week as well. I just will get this out of the way. Arizona and Oakland play this weekend, so 2 teams combined 3-15, which is not great.
But we also have some good games this week.
We will. Now let's get into the Week 11 slate. There are some very good games this week. In fact, we'll get to 2 of these, but I just want to mention the Thursday night game, also very good. Green Bay and Seattle, that game in Seattle. Weird things always seem to happen when those 2 teams play. And that game really, I think, has the potential to be, if you lose that game, one of those 2 teams, you're probably done. I think the path to the playoffs is a little easier for the Packers with just how wide open the NFC North is. We'll get to that as well a little bit later. But that game has a lot of playoff implications. There's some other decent games this week. You look at Cincinnati and Baltimore with Lamar Jackson maybe getting some run. Pittsburgh and Jacksonville seemed like a much better game at the start of the season. And Tennessee and Indianapolis, a sneaky good game this weekend as well. So decent little slate despite a handful of teams on the bye. You said the second to last week, the penultimate week of buys, if I'm not mistaken. So after that, we'll be back to a full slate. So that's something to look forward to as well. We've done the records. We've gotten the small talk out of the way. So let's get into Week 11. As always, odds brought to us by OddsShark.com. Also, we get a ton of trends, ton of database information, stats, you name it. So go to OddsShark.com. Follow them on social media as well. Their Twitter game is very, very strong. A lot of good trends, a lot of interesting nuggets here and there. The Patriots last week, by the way, for instance, I think they had won their last 8 games entering last week before the bye by an average of 22 points. That did not work out so well. So I guess maybe that's not a great thing for OddsShark, but they give you the information. You make your picks.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah,
it's there for you.
Yeah. All right, speaking of it, let's get into it. We'll start Sunday afternoon. Is that where we're going to start? Yeah, sure. 2 6-3 teams, the Houston Texans, who have not lost since what seems like they haven't lost in about 3 years. Take their they won 6 straight.
They won 6 straight.
So after starting 0-3, they've won 6 straight. They take that winning streak into Washington D.C. the nation's capital, take on the Redskins. The Redskins 6-3 as well. One of the more surprising teams in the league, I would say. Well, I guess, who's more surprising here? We say I'm leaning towards Washington. I think we all expected kind of Houston to be better this year.
It's Washington, but here's my thing with them. I still don't know what they are.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've said this about the Redskins for the past 2 decades.
And the thing is, I feel like we talk about teams every week that we can't get a good read on. And you know, our overall numbers are pretty good this season. I feel like I say this about a lot of teams, but I think I've been wrong with every single Redskins pick I've made this year.
I feel that way too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I have been, but it's just because week to week.
You never know what you're gonna get.
And I mean, I think last week that game really spoke volumes about their lack of identity. So to speak.
And I think I'm going to touch on this some when I make my pick. So, Ricky, why don't you start it off with your pick here, with Houston being 3-point road favorites?
So, I am going to take
home
Houston.
favorites, right? Sorry, Washington's 3-point home under. Oh, sorry.
I was right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I was right.
So you were talking about Washington, you said Houston. So
we'll cut that out.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So,
thanks for nothing.
Now to get into my pick.
Yeah.
I'm taking the Texans, and it is because, I don't know what Washington is. You see, they give up 501 yards to the Bucs, force them to punch us once, yet they yield just 3 points thanks to 4 takeaways. Like,
that's crazy.
I think that speaks, that winning that type of game speaks more about the Bucs than it did about the Redskins. The Bucs are just,
I agree.
They do nothing. They want to hand you the game, basically.
That's insane. I just
minus 19 turnover differential.
As an aside, like, I don't know how to look this up, and somebody might have already looked it up. It might be out on the internet somewhere. When was the last time a team gave up 500 yards, only allowed 3 points? It's insanity.
But I still look at that Washington team, and the offensive line scares me a little bit. Obviously, dealing with some. That's another thing that goes back to last season. I feel like they were in shambles last year as well. So in this matchup, going up against a good Texans pass rush, ranked number 8 in the league according to Pro Football Focus, I think the Texans take advantage of that. That matchup advantage. And the Redskins, offensively, I don't know. It's still something about them. They lack a little explosion there. You're relying on 2 aging guys, really, as your top 2 playmakers. And ultimately, it comes down to I don't think the Texans are going to beat themselves quite like the Bucs did this week. Well, I would certainly hope so.
Yeah.
So, road favorites scares me a little bit, but
the road favorites does scare me a lot. That's why I'm taking Washington. I like them as home underdogs. We keep talking about, Washington doesn't have an identity. Does Houston really have an identity? I mean, we look at their wins. They've won 6 in a row. They beat the Colts, Cowboys, Bills, Jaguars, Dolphins, Broncos. None of those teams are currently have winning records. They all have either they're 500 or with losing records. So this is a Houston team that's going on the road against a pretty decent team that's not going to make mistakes. That's one thing we do know about the Redskins. Alex Smith is not going to make mistakes. Only 3 interceptions this year. And, Washington's home. They're angry for being underappreciated. People keep talking about maybe the Eagles or the Cowboys still having not the Eagles anymore, but maybe the Cowboys after that big win against Philly. Sure, they allowed 500 yards and they only allowed 3 points, but they're bend, don't break defense. I like that about them. We always talk about bend, don't break defenses. That's what Washington is. Give me the points. And in 3 of the last 4 games, Houston hasn't been able to get 300 yards despite winning. So 300 total yards of offense. So I think Washington at home, they'll be able to do some things, and you're giving me 3 points, I'll take them.
Yeah, 75% of the bets right now coming in on Houston as well, which I think usually helps you. I think when you're laying or when you're getting points and you're going against the public, you usually do pretty well. I'm also with Houston, though, on this one, as is Ricky. I just think I'm looking at the stats real quick. Alex Smith, in their last 3 wins, has thrown for exactly 178 yards. Weird. And 163 yards the week before that against Carolina. So they don't rack up a ton of offensive yardage. But I just look
mistakes.
No, they don't. And here's an interesting trend before I get into my own reasoning. This helps out Andre actually. This is from OddsShark. Since 2015, teams that have a 6-game winning streak are 52-21 straight up in that 7th game, but just 36, 35-1 against the spread. So maybe a little bit of overvaluing of the Texans at this point. And they have had some, they've had to eke out a couple wins here and there. But I do like that
some bad teams.
Yeah, they have. But I like that they're getting healthy. They're going to get Jonathan Joseph back this week probably. Aaron Colvin not as good, but still, it's another body. And the linebacking core, they're going to get Dylan Cole and Zach Cunningham back. They already have a good run defense without those guys. They're ranked 7th Pro Football Focus. They're allowing the 2nd fewest yards per carry this season. And it's just Alex Smith doesn't make mistakes, but against a good defense like this, is that necessarily good enough? Like, are you going to be able to move the football? Are you going to be able to put points on the board? In Washington, again, their defense has had some issues as well. The run defense, very good. Pass defense hasn't been as good. We talked about the fact they gave up 500 yards last week. The week before, they gave up 491 yards against Atlanta. And they ended up giving up a ton of points there. Houston, by the way, I think this is over the last 3 weeks. I'm not sure. I should have wrote this down. Converting 72% of its red zone chances. So where Tampa Bay wasn't able to score last week, they went 0 for 5 in the red zone. I don't think Houston has as much issue this week. Also, one thing to note, Bill O'Brien, the Texans coming off of a bye. Bill O'Brien 3-1 straight up, 4-0 against the spread following a bye. So I like that as well. So I'm going to take the Texans and lay the points. I don't feel good about it.
Forget about Washington's defense, though. I mean, yeah, sure, they're in terms of forcing turnovers, they're actually fourth in takeaways this year with 18 and a plus 11 turnover differential.
I mean, yeah,
sure. That's their recipe. Sure, they're going to allow some yards, but they're going to make the opposing team make some mistakes.
They don't have a ton of good wins either.
They beat the Green Bay, right?
Yeah, I mean, so?
They beat Green Bay. They beat Carolina.
Carolina, that's it.
I mean, that's more than anything Houston's done.
I'm fine. I'm just saying, playing devil's advocate.
16 points against that Bucs defense, too.
Right.
I mean, that defense is atrocious.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen a little bit more. And I think it is
and those turnover margin numbers were helped a lot last week.
That I just look back to, but the 2 weeks ago, the game against the Falcons, they laid the egg at home.
Yeah.
And up until that point, I thought maybe we got something here. Maybe this is an underrated team.
That scared me away from them.
And
then
I
looked like an idiot last week because Tampa Bay sucks. But whatever. What are you gonna do? Anything else on that?
No.
All right, Sunday night. Let's get into Sunday night. This is the NFC North matchup I was talking about. The Minnesota Vikings head to Chicago, take on the Bears. The Bears 3-point favorites. This game was flexed out of the afternoon to the night game. It's going to be cold. It's going to be mid-20s, clear, slight breeze, so not living up to the Windy City moniker. 63% of the bets coming in on the Vikings taking the points here. This is for first place in the NFC North. The Bears 6-3, Minnesota 5-3-1. This is the first time in 4 years that the Bears have been favored over the Vikings. They are riding a 3-game winning streak in which they've won their last 3 games by 58 points combined. Those wins, though, coming against the Jets, Buffalo, and Detroit. So this is a big test for the Bears. If we want to take the Bears seriously, they have to win this game. If they win this game, they're in the driver's seat in the North. Andre, which side are you on here?
I think Minnesota is one of the most overrated football teams in football right now. In the NFL. We keep talking about
sentence.
I think Chicago has the ability to turn Minnesota into a very one-dimensional team in this Sunday night game. Sure, Dalvin Cook is back, and he rushed for 89 yards on 10 carries against the Lions in their last game. That was against Detroit's rush defense, which is atrocious. Chicago's going to be able to contain him. They have one of the best rush defenses in the league. In fact, I think it is the best rush defense in the league. And so if they shut down the run, and Kirk Cousins is throwing the ball a ton, which he already is 5th in the league in pass attempts, and when he throws the ball this year more than 40 times in the game, the Vikings are 0-3-1. When it's less than 40 or less, they're 5-0. So I think Cousins is going to have a lot of pressure. It's going to be cold in Chicago. I don't like that spot for him. I'm going to take Chicago. Plus, Chicago, #1 in turnover differential. Maybe blowout here, I think.
Wow. See, I'm kind of on the flip side. I don't know if we're giving Minnesota enough credit.
They've been really good lately.
They've been really good lately, especially defensively.
Yeah.
And they're kind of getting back slowly but surely to that level they were at last year when they were, among the NFC's elite. So I'm just wondering if this is kind of a situation where, it's time to recognize them a little bit more than maybe we had until this point. I mentioned that defensive turnaround. I know Mike Zimmer acknowledges kind of some changes schematically there, moving the line around, some tweaks in coverage. The return of Everson Griffin's been huge, pretty underrated. And then I just think offensively, you get Dalvin Cook back. That adds another layer offensively. I like the idea of using both him and Latavius Murray on the field at the same time. So, I don't know, going into this game, you said it's kind of a show-me game for Chicago. The Bears got to, sort of prove that they're among the elite in the NFC. I just think, as well as Mitchell Trubisky has looked at times, he's still a young quarterback. I still think he's susceptible to, to laying an egg against good defenses. And I think we could agree at this point right now, the Vikings defense is a good defense. Whereas maybe we had some questions earlier in the year.
Yeah. I'm going to take the
10 sacks 2 weeks ago, too.
I'm actually
Vikings?
Yeah.
10 sacks.
10 sacks, 5 in the red zone. So
against the Lions.
Yeah.
Talk amongst yourself.
Make your pick.
I'm taking the Bears.
Yeah.
It really comes down to, you want to talk about battle of the trenches.
Which we love. All of us love.
We do love. Oh, yeah, that's what I thought. I had something wrong in my notes. It comes down to that for me as well. Chicago, obviously, we've talked about it different points this season. Andres got done talking about it, how good they are rushing the passer. Well, you know what? Minnesota, not very good at blocking for the passer. They have the 31st ranked pass blocking team, according to Pro Football Focus. Sticking with Pro Football Focus numbers, Minnesota's O-line has received a pass blocking grade in games per game of 55 in 4 games this season. 55 or lower in 4 games this season. They're 1-3 of those games. Those have come against Buffalo, Philadelphia, New Orleans, and Los Angeles, the Rams. Those are 4 very good defenses. I think Chicago clearly has a very good defense, playing at home as well. I also like the fact that almost 2/3 of the bets right now are coming in on Minnesota, so maybe there's a little value there with the Bears. I also think, I was kind of breaking this down, thinking about it in terms of how do you remedy that if you're the Vikings? I was like, well, maybe they get the screen game involved, especially with Dalvin Cook. And I know Dalvin Cook's been hurt this season, but this is an interesting stat I found at ESPN.com. Vikings have gained only 141 yards on screens this season, including everybody. And they have guys that you would, maybe involve in the screen game. And this is including running wide receivers and running backs. So, you got to think of a guy like Diggs or Thielen, maybe you get those guys. They only 141 yards. When you break it down to just running backs, they have 22 yards for through screen passes to running backs this season. That's 31st in the NFL. It's something that they haven't utilized enough, in my opinion. Maybe they do it this week. Maybe we're sitting here next week and say, oh, well, they figured it out. And, Dalvin Cook's 75-yard touchdown on the screen pass really swung the game. But I just think that that's going to be such a hard matchup for the Vikings to win. Cousins has been good under pressure. He's got a passer rating when in the 90s when he's under pressure, but I don't know. I feel like there's probably a boneheaded turnover in there somewhere. You look at this. This is a team that struggled to beat Green Bay on the road earlier in the season. The weather's gonna be worse here. You could argue that the Bears. The Bears clearly have the better defense than the Packers. So I think it's that similar kind of game for the Vikings. It's gonna be a tough one. It's just a tough spot for them to be in. So I'm gonna take the Bears here. I don't necessarily love it because, again, Mitch Trubisky, I'm still not sure what he is. He's another one that's kind of tough to figure out, but I just think the smarter pick here is with the Bears.
I was just going to say, in terms of Trubisky, I don't think he's getting enough love.
No.
What was the last 3 games, 6 touchdowns, 1 pick? He had a 2-pick game against the Patriots, but that's the Patriots. They're Patriots. Yeah.
They have done actually, Brian Baldinger, who's a great Twitter follow, was doing one of his video breakdowns of he's making a good point in terms of they've done a really good job of starting to build around him through the draft, through free agents, through trades. So he does have some weapons there. That's a really good game. I think it might
come down to a kick.
It could.
And Chicago's kicker missed 4 kicks this past week.
That's a good point.
Wasn't he all hit the uprights?
Yeah, all of them.
That's
field
pretty
goals,
tough
2
to do.
points. And it's more impressive than making all 4. That's for sure.
All right. Let's Viva Los Angeles, actually. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Rams in a potential Super Bowl preview, a game that was supposed to be in Mexico City, which would have just, even if the field is good, would have looked so dumb. And if you think about it in hindsight, this is not a game that should be played in Mexico or London, or it's got to be played in one of these 2 teams. One of these 2 stadiums, and if it's not being played, if it's going to be played in the neutral field, it better be the Super Bowl. So I kind of like that this game has been moved back to Los Angeles because Mexico City, the field is a dump. I don't know if you guys saw pictures of it. I guess they had a concert. It looks like they strategically set fire to the field, like some sort of Stonehenge type of thing with the aliens or something. I don't know. It looked terrible. The NFL made the right call. I don't know what made him wait so long. I didn't think that the grass was going to magically get better, but that's neither here nor there. This game back in Los Angeles. The Rams 3.5-point favorites here. If I'm not mistaken, both teams 9-1. Both teams heading to the bye next week. So this is a huge game for both clubs. Plenty of playoff implications in terms of home field advantage and things like that. So must-see a game. The total 63.5 points right now. That's one of the highest of all time. It might be the highest of all time, if I'm not mistaken. So Vegas expecting a shootout here. Like I said, Rams 3.5-point favorites. Ricky, why don't you kick this one off?
If that's what we get, this shootout of historic proportions as they're expecting, for me it comes down to which defense do I trust to make a play at the end of the game. And it's the Rams. And I just, from a personnel standpoint, from track record standpoint, I know they have their defensive flaws as well, and I do think the Chiefs have come a long way since the beginning of the year. But I don't know. I think the Rams defense makes that one play. I can't see the Chiefs stopping Todd Gurley. I mean, you look at both these teams toward the bottom of the league in run defense, but Pro Football Focus that we mentioned time and time again, their advanced analytics view the Chiefs far less favorably, dead last actually. So I don't know. I think that the Rams defense does make a play in this one. I think they also have the ability to put some pressure on Patrick Mahomes, and maybe that's just how you kind of finally slow this Chiefs offense.
I'm going to go with the Rams as well, Ricky. I think you just mentioned Chiefs dead last in rush defense.
Right.
On Pro Football Focus, Rams running back is a guy named Todd Gurley who's just going to completely run over them, eat the clock. Rams are going to have the ball. Plus, forget the stats and everything. Just think about the intangibles for a second. I think this whole crazy travel stuff is going to impact the Chiefs more than the Rams, because the Rams get to go home. Well, they're in Colorado Springs right now. If we're working out in Colorado Springs for a week with that altitude, they're going to come back to sea level in Los Angeles. This seems to be very well conditioned. Chiefs, meanwhile, they have to. First they're going to Mexico, now they have to go to LA. I think that's a little stressful. But forget about that. Let's look at the Chiefs' competition lately. Cardinals, Browns, Broncos, Bengals, Jaguars, Broncos, Niners. What do all those teams have in common? They all suck. And those are all teams that the Chiefs have beat. The first 2 weeks, they won some big games, the Chiefs. Since then, other than the Patriots, which they lost, they haven't played anyone important. And people pointing to the Rams allowing a lot of yards. Well, the last 3 weeks, they had to go up against Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, they're going to allow a lot of yards. They've had some tough competition. They've played well against them. I'm taking the Rams. I think this is going to be a blowout, too.
You don't have high hopes for close games this weekend. Blowouts across the board.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the Chiefs. You're gonna give me. I'm within the field goal, so I love that. You talk about. I don't know what you're talking about with the travel thing. Like, would you rather go to Los Angeles or Mexico City?
Yeah, but like psychologically,
also
first you think you're going to Mexico, and now you have to go to LA.
It doesn't bother them. Like, they're just these guys show up because you show up, get on the plane, you fly, you get off the plane, you go to your hotel, you sit in your hotel, you go to the stadium, you play football. Like, they're not. I don't think anybody's bummed out that they don't get to go. Like, what is in? Like, you think these guys are geared up, like, on TripAdvisor, checking out Mexico City, like, attractions and stuff, and now they're all butthurt that they have to go to Los Angeles? No, I don't think so. If anything, it's maybe even more of a relief because you don't have to get your, you don't have to go through customs or anything like that. Also, go Google Chiefs Chargers crowd Los Angeles, do the image search or whatever. People show up.
That's the Chargers game.
It's all right. So they're still going to show up for the Rams game, too.
That's what I'm saying. The fans are all planning to go to Mexico.
So there's going to be no Chiefs.
The bars are going to be packed in Mexico City with Chiefs fans.
No, I think Chiefs fans are going to travel well. I think it's so in that way it's almost a blessing in disguise. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. That's not really a big issue. I think you look at Kansas City, they're getting healthy. That was a big thing for me earlier with the other game, but Kansas City getting Sammy Watkins back, Anthony Hitchens, both expected to play after missing last week or 2 weeks ago. If I'm not, I don't know, who knows. You guys talk about the rushing game, kind of. Both teams, good rushing attack. Yes. So maybe if you're looking for a play on the total, maybe the under is the play here because I think maybe there's gonna be a lot of running in this game. Despite maybe it always feels like when we talk about these huge, the huge totals and stuff like that. Maybe sometimes it doesn't always live up to the expectations. Just look at that Patriots games a couple of weeks ago. So maybe both teams come out and try to establish the run. I just thought it was weird, Ricky. You're talking about the Pro Football Focus, the grading or whatever. The Rams are like good against the run according to the grades or whatever.
Yeah.
Despite
but they're basically exactly the same.
They're giving up the most yards per carry this season.
Yeah, raw numbers, they're very
so
similar.
And I started thinking about it. I was like, well, why is that the case? And I think it's because teams don't run the ball against the Rams very often, which makes sense. If the Rams are jumping out to a big lead or you're trying to play catch up with the Rams all day, you're not going to be running the ball as much. That started to change over the last 3 weeks. So for this season, the Rams are teams are running against the Rams the 8th lowest rate in the entire NFL. The last 3 weeks, it's flipped. It's been the 7th. They've been the 7th most run against team. In those 3 games, they're allowing 173 yards per game. That includes 273 rushing yards last week against the Seahawks. The Chiefs can run the ball. I think they're going to find a lot of success on the ground here. I think they have, as well of any team that the Rams have played all season, they have the ability to go punch for punch with them. It's a loaded offense. We've seen the Chiefs they went into Foxborough, and after a sluggish first half, they looked like the Chiefs again. They put up points with the Patriots. They ran with them. And I think, the Patriots defense probably is a little more well-equipped to slow down that team than the Rams are. So I think the Chiefs are going to get theirs. And so I just think it's a team that can hang with the Rams. And I also look at, again, Marcus Peters. He played better last week.
Marcus Peters' revenge game.
Yeah, that's the thing. Kansas City knows a lot about Marcus Peters, so they're going to probably find a way to expose him. Still without Aqib Talib, that defense struggles in the secondary. There's just a lot of weapons coming in. So I think the Chiefs, I don't know if they win, but I think they find a way to keep it close. That half point makes a huge difference for me, so I'll take the points here.
Maybe it won't be a blowout. You made some convincing points, but I'm still taking the Rams. I do like the points you brought up. They're very cogent arguments.
Thank you. Also, we just keep giving Pro Football Focus all the love, but these are the number 1 and number 3 ranked overall teams. So has a chance to be a legitimate slobber knocker.
Saints number 2 or Chargers?
Huh?
Saints number 2 or Chargers?
I'm not sure. Probably Saints, I think. So, anyway.
What would you do if you had tickets to that game?
That is
we were talking about this earlier.
Well, we were talking.
How do you approach that?
We were trying to figure that out because you just got back from Nashville for the Patriots game, and it's like if that was at least you're going to Nashville. Like it's just
you can still
more
do
of
something, and
I don't know,
more of a Mexico City.
You can find plenty to do in Mexico City, but I don't know. I've never been to Mexico City, so I'm not going to speak ill of it. But I'd rather be going to Nashville with nothing to do than Mexico City, that's for sure. Saints number 2, by the way. Yes. Patriots 4, Bears 5, Chargers 6, and the Green Bay Packers at 7. Weird.
Packers.
Weird.
They just lost some tough games.
I agree. All right, let's do locks and upsets. Andre, why don't you kick it off?
My lock of the week, absolutely love. This is the biggest lock of the season for me this year so far. Carolina Panthers, 4-point favorites against the Detroit Lions. Lions stink. They allow nearly 5 yards per carry, which is the 6th most in the league. In Carolina, they love to run the ball, 3rd in rushing yards per carry. They're going to just run all over this Lions team. Cam Newton, he's playing the best football of his career. 3 consecutive games with 70% completion percentage. Even in that blowout loss against the Steelers, it was a 70% completion percentage. I'm throwing that blowout loss against the Steelers out the door. It was a Thursday night game. Weird things happen on Thursday night. Detroit, they just haven't been able to run the ball at all in the last 3 games either. And Carolina allows fewer than 100 yards per game in terms of rushing yards. So Stafford's going to throw the ball a ton. That's not a good recipe for success. I'll take Carolina.
I'm going to take the Falcons, 3.5-point favorites over the Cowboys. And really, it just comes down to I don't want to overreact to what I just saw in Atlanta's game against Cleveland, their loss there, and Dallas's win over Philadelphia. I thought the Falcons going into this past week had kind of turned a corner a little bit. I thought maybe they'd make some strides defensively. Bruce Irvin's there now, but getting Deion Jones back this week. Matt Ryan still played pretty well, all things considered. So, I don't know. I don't want to overreact, like I said, to this past week. So I do like the Falcons to take care of business. 15-2 straight up and 12-5 against the spread in their last 17 conference home games. Cowboys also 0-5 straight up in the game following their past 5 victories.
Wow.
Matt Ryan, I still like that.
Tough for them to string together.
Say that one more time.
0-5 straight up, 1-4 against the spread in the game following their past 5 wins.
That's
it's good coaching. Or it's just Vegas completely overreacting in the wrong way. But that's interesting. Well, I guess the 0-5 would say that. 0-5. More the
Cowboys.
coaching.
Cowboys being Cowboys. 500 teams since 1996.
We're doing locks. Yeah, I'm going to be the latest person to use the Chargers as my lock. I feel like one of us does it every week, but they are playing the Denver Broncos. They are 7-point favorites at home. Broncos 2-12 straight up in the last 14 road games. The Chargers 5-11 against the spread in the last 16 home games. I don't care. They're 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 overall. This team is red hot. I think they continue to find a way to get it done. I just don't think Denver can keep pace with this team, especially having to play this game in California. So, upsets, Ricky.
Titans, 2-point underdogs against the Colts.
Good one.
This is just kind of a nod to what I just saw when I was down there.
Recency bias.
It really is. Good mix. Right after I get done saying I don't want to overreact. But the Colts, we've talked about several teams, the level of competition that they've played. So I understand the Colts, they're kind of clicking on all cylinders here. But their last 3 wins after starting 1-5 over the Bills, Raiders, and Jaguars. Find me 3 more broken teams in the NFL right now. So I like the Titans to keep it rolling. I like they had a good mix on, with their play calling offensively. Corey Davis showing his potential now. So, they're coming off back-to-back wins over both the Cowboys and the Patriots. Again, some decent competition. So I like the Titans to get in there.
I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over New York Giants. Speaking of don't overreact, I'm not going to overreact to the Giants winning on Monday night. And, Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Bucs, they're just going to generate yards. They didn't finish those red zone drives against the Redskins, who are good at forcing turnovers. The Giants aren't good at forcing turnovers. So Tampa Bay, they're still get a lot of yards, except they'll finish those drives against the Giants team that's pretty bad still, regardless of last week's win.
Okay. I'm not overreacting here. I'm playing the matchup here, but I'm going to be on the other side of Ricky's lock. I'm using the Cowboys as my upset pick.
We've never had that happen before.
Which is probably a good move considering my record in locking.
That's a good point, yeah.
That's the smart play.
That's it, yeah. So something's got to give here. Dallas does... They don't do a lot of things very poorly other than throw the football. That won't be a huge issue this week against Atlanta. So even if they want to throw the ball, Atlanta's pass defense has been terrible this year. They're 30th in passing yards per game allowed. But I think it's more of what Atlanta can or can't do against the run game. That's the big issue. We just saw last week Nick Chubb go off against them. So I think a similar fate is in store for Ezekiel Elliott, who had, if I'm not mistaken, was that his best game of the season? More or less his best game of the season, 151 yards on 19 carries and a touchdown. Along with 6 catches for 36 yards and a touchdown. A great game, finally turned back into Ezekiel Elliott. I think he has similar success here. I think this is a game where Dallas, if they're smart, which is a big assumption, comes out and tries to dominate the time of possession, keep Matt Ryan on the sideline. I think they find a way to get that done. He breaks a couple big gains here and there. Elliott does, and they find a way to win. By the way, Dallas, top 10 defense in terms of, yards allowed per game, which is...
Yards per play, I think they're number 1.
Yeah, so, which is...
Up there, sorry.
Pretty impressive, I guess.
Rushing yards.
Whether or not they can slow down that Atlanta offense, we'll have to see, but I'll take my chances. I feel even better about it now that I'm basically fading Ricky. So that's
not a bad strategy.
Yeah. Well, that was fun. That was quick.
Yeah, this is. I think this is a nice weekend. Like even that.
A lot of good.
Like I said, even that Cowboys Falcons game, both teams 4-5. It's a huge game for both of them in terms of keeping pace in the wild card hunt. So, man. The NFC is awesome.
Every game is good this week.
No, stop doing that.
Look,
you're better.
Bucks Giants isn't good.
Well, you need it though, because every game last week.
Raiders Cardinals isn't good.
I know.
Every matchup going.
Broncos Chargers isn't good. There's 3 bad games.
That's right. Yeah, there's 3 games that are objectively terrible.
The rest are decent or good.
That's true. It's cool. It'll be fun. So hopefully you guys don't have a lot of plans this week.
AFC North football. Bengals,
watch
Ravens.
football. That game actually, I'm not really that
high on.
I don't really care about even if it's a Lamar Jackson. I don't really care. But so plenty to look forward to. Enjoy the week. Hopefully you learned something this week. Hopefully, and if you didn't learn something, you feel like you didn't learn something, just tail us or fade us. Excuse me. Don't tail us. But actually, you might want to do that because we've been doing pretty damn good this year. Yep. So we'll look at to keep it rolling. We will be back again next week for the Spread, NESN.com Football Picks podcast. Until then, enjoy the foosball games, and we will see you again next week. Adios.